postseason. But Chris Paul, the old head who provides the steady hand, becomes the closeout king. Dropped 37 in the series clincher against Denver. 41 tonight, becoming the oldest player in postseason history with 35 points in consecutive closeout games in a postseason. The previous oldest, pretty nice company to be keeping, and that's a hell of a list right there. He now trumps Michael Jordan, which I know would please him to no end, the Wake Forest guy topping the Tar Heel. And once again, we welcome in Stephen A. Smith and Michael Wilbon to the show. And gentlemen, I'll begin with Chris Paul. I feel it's only appropriate. And Michael, how best to frame what it is that he provided this group? They had never been in the playoffs as constructed, and he obviously helps lead them. How do you frame what you saw from him in this evening?
Scott, I got to go back to the beginning of it when he first knew he was going to be traded, and it's know-how, it's poise, it's intellect, it's toughness, all of those things. There's so many more, but I think at least those few sort of represent all that Chris Paul is, and he really wanted to come here, meaning Phoenix, of course. And I probably shouldn't tell this story. I'm going to tell it quickly because it's an off-the-record story. If Chris gets mad at me later, I'll put some money in a little jar.
It's fine.
Yeah, we're working on a project, a Chris Paul generated project, and so we're doing it on Zooms in the summer and in the early fall. And during one of the Zooms at the end, Chris says, "What are you going to do now? We're done." I go, "I don't know. I'll go out and hit some golf balls." He says, "Nah, I need a favor." I said, "What?" He goes, "Can you help me look for a house in Scottsdale?" I'm like, why would a guy who's already in LA with his family need a house in Scottsdale? And I said that, and he just pauses and he says, "Think, Mike, think." And I said, it took me a while, and I went, "Oh my God, this could happen." And what he talked about down there is the order that he talked about it. I mean, Booker, there were all those people involved, but Devin Booker was the big part. He, like the late, great Kobe Bryant, looked at Devin Booker very early on, and they each saw something that drew them. Mm-hmm. They loved everything about him. And so Chris wanted to play with Devin Booker, and he thought this could work. He thought it could work before anybody else thought it could work, other than maybe Devin. And so, but all of those things characterized the way Chris felt about coming to the Phoenix Suns at the beginning of the season.
You know, Mike Wilbon isn't the only one with an off-the-court story about Chris Paul. As you well know, Scott, Michael Wilbon, I executive produced a project, Why Not Us, with Chris Paul for ESPN Plus earlier this year. And a lot of times we found ourselves talking off the record about what he felt about Devin Booker. And let me tell you something about Chris Paul. He's not well liked by a few people in the NBA because he's an acquired taste, Scott. He's a guy that gets in your face, in your mug. He's incredibly demanding. He pulls no punches. He holds you accountable. That ain't for everybody, but here's what you need to know about him. As much as he's not liked by some people, he's loved more by others and universally respected by everyone because of his leadership ability. And so when you see him with his teammates in Phoenix and you see the way that they have this level of adulation and affection for him, what that means is they've bought in. They recognized a long time ago that this guy that is an acquired taste, if we acquire that taste, we might just be champions one day. That's the kind of talk that they were having during this season when they were one of the top two teams in the Western Conference, and it came out tonight to reach fruition. This is about the leadership of Chris Paul. A game 6, a closeout game, fresh off of Paul George dropping 41. What does he do? Does he answer with 25 points and 15 assists? No, he drops 41.
Real answer.
With 8 assists in 35 minutes with 0 turnovers. I'm sorry. It is the most special performance of his career, and it happened on the same night that this man is going to the NBA Finals for the first time in his 16-year career.
I think his greatest performance, not his best performance.
Yes, his greatest.
But his greatest performance coming here, getting him to the finals, fulfilling all of this. And he stresses over it now. Don't be misled. I mean, he wants this badly. And so for him to make this happen here, and as Booker said, I asked Booker once, what is it like now that you got to be accountable to this guy? And he smiled, and Booker said, it ain't for everybody.
Right.
And to Stephen A.'s point, I mean, he's a demanding dude.
And you guys both well know that whole disrespect or chip on the shoulder thing can be a played out routine. But he's fueled by those who believe that his best time was behind him. And I think he demonstrated clearly tonight what he still possesses. And now they have at least 4 more games to prove that he could be a champion, a minted champion once and for all. As always, gentlemen, your time appreciated. We'll talk again when the finals arrive, all right?
All right.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
I appreciate it. There's a yin to that yang. On the other side of the joy, there's the emotions of Reggie Jackson, who visited with us the other night. He is fueled by confidence and a passion for this game, and his season came to an end in Game 6.
My 10th year's been my best year. It was the most challenging year, the most fun year. Not sure when you're going to play. Ups and downs, guys being injured. Still finding my way in this locker room. First thing I told those guys is thank you for saving me. And I appreciate them. I appreciate every guy in that locker room. I appreciate Paul for getting on that phone last year at the end of the season when he was talking to a buyout with Detroit. I'm thankful for everything I've experienced being here. This city making me feel home. This organization welcoming me. My quirks, my strengths, my weaknesses. I'm not here today without this team. I'm not still playing without this team, so.
And I appreciate that people get a chance to see that emotion. Are these men well compensated for the time? They are. But this is something that matters. That you pour your heart and your soul into this. Mark Jackson, Jeff Van Gundy, you guys know all about what this is about. And one season comes to an end and another continues as the Suns move on to a championship. And Jeff, I will begin with you just to get your perspective on what it is that Chris Paul provided in a 41-point answer to what Paul George provided the other night in 41. How do you frame what Chris Paul gave the Suns tonight?
Well, when the Clippers cut the Suns' lead to 7, he responded with his best basketball. They needed his shot making. He provided it. He ran and orchestrated that period of time, that most important period of time, and he absolutely led that surge to what ended up being an absolute blowout. So an impressive response after 3 subpar games for Chris Paul.
Mark, you played the same position so well for so many years. As you watch Chris Paul from that best seat in the house, what is it that most impresses you that he brings to the table?
Just his leadership, his competitive spirit, his ability to be the ultimate maestro. He's truly one of the best to ever do it, not just point guards, but players in the history of this game. And he deserves this opportunity. I said it on the broadcast. There's people say he's not a champion because he hasn't gone to the finals and hasn't won a championship. I've been in those sneakers. I've been in between those trenches. He is an absolute champion. Win, lose, or draw in this finals, Chris Paul is a champion, and the stamp of it is taking this Phoenix Suns team that recently knows nothing about winning, knows nothing about the habits, knows nothing about building a culture. And along with Monty Williams, James Jones, Devin Booker, they put their stamp on this, and they are 4 games away from winning a championship and have a legit chance.
Monty Williams will join us a bit later. And Jeff, I as a guy who's you try to lead teams to the title, you've been down that road. Mark, you too. How do you best credit what Williams has done in figuring out how a group who has never done this? I mean, they've never played in the playoff game together. What role has Williams played in getting the Suns to this point?
Well, Monty Williams is a man of impeccable integrity. That's number 1. 2, I think he puts team before self, never self-promotion. Even think about the awards where Rachel was interviewing. He stood in the background, didn't even get interviewed, allowed the players and the owner to get most of the credit. And I think he and James Jones in tandem have got the type of players that they believe win basketball games. They have their 2 stars. They have a young, promising big in DeAndre Ayton, and then they got around them enough shooting, skill, and toughness that allows you to play for it all. So the combination of roster building and Monty Williams' leadership and X and O's ability, I think, has driven them to heights I don't think anyone expected in the preseason.
And I wrote down a word you just said, which is allow. I feel like that's an important word, Mark, because it seems to me, and you guys would know so much better, that Monty allows them to be who they are and what they are, while at the same time still trying to get him to do what he hopes they might. Is that a fair representation of what Williams brings?
Well, absolutely. He said at times during his younger days of coaching, he tried to overcoach. Now he's realized to let go of the rope and allow the guys to be themselves and teach them. But the biggest thing to me that he does is he lets them know by his actions, by the way he treats them, that he gives a crap about them, that he truly loves his players. And when you love guys, they will respond with what they do in between the lines. And they have responded with putting him in position to be a championship coach. What a wonderful job he's done.
And that's wonderfully said, gentlemen. As always, time appreciated. We'll talk during the finals. I thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Game 6 was the 290th in the history of the Suns franchise. That's the most postseason games played among NBA franchises without a championship. That's 4 more than the Jazz. Next on the list, the Pacers. The Nuggets are next on that list if you're curious. And it was a closeout opportunity. Paul George was tremendous in Game 5, which forced this one. The Suns early on, aggressive. That was the big word Tim Legler was talking about as we were watching this game, and he was keeping his notes. Mikal Bridges up top. Chris Paul had been miserable shooting it from beyond the arc, but he was hot. Jay Crowder, too. Suns were 17 of 22 off passes in the first half, 17 assists. They led by 9. Jay Crowder, big game. He hits from deep and has a little something to say to the front row crowd. Then it's Devin Booker attacking the rim. Ty Lue, give him a ton of credit. You lose one of the best players in the world and your guys close out the 1 seed and force this to 6 games. Down by 13, make it 10. The 3 hit by Marcus Morris Sr. Fans trying to keep in it. Batum, corner 3 off a good pass, had to have it. They got it. We've seen this Clipper team go on bursts. Ballmer, whoa. What are we doing? Whoa. Quick 10-0 run, and it was a 7-point game. But then Chris Paul, just spectacular. He answers once. Now in Batum. Again, Paul had not shot it well in this series from 3, but was just locked in this one. He scored or assisted on 16 of the 31 in the third, and they've got a big lead and is only going to grow. Paul on the drive. Again, Paul on the drive, and here it's just the okie doke. You understand Morris thinks he's looking towards the corner. Boogie's looking for somebody else. What are we doing? And it is a big lead, step back, and all 3 of these. The and one, the Suns up 19 after the free throw. And with Phoenix getting 3 more from Paul as he walks by Patrick Beverley. Whatever it is he said, you just cannot do that. Patrick Beverley shoves Paul in the back, given a technical. He heads to the locker room. Paul with 31 in the second half. Now Booker burying that one. Paul George being acknowledged for what he gave this Clipper team. Again, Kawhi obviously out. And Chris Paul, to the roars of his family and the Suns fans in the building in an emotional moment, is Monty, Chris Paul, naturally Lil Wayne in the building. Of course, baby, we move like lasagna, right? Silence. That was a while ago. All right, trophy presented. Afterwards, Ty Lue on the losing side of it on what he'll remember most about this season.
Being down 0-2 against Dallas, fighting back and competing to win that series. Being down 0-2 against, Utah, doing the same thing. And our team shows a lot of character. When we're down, we can easily give up and give in, but we just stick with the game plan. We don't point fingers. We stay together. And that was just good for me to see that this year. So when I think back to this season, I think back to the playoff run we had and being down the series, both of those first 2 and fighting back and winning those. And, what we did this year was special.
Tim Legler alongside, and Tim against a team in the Clippers and a coach in Ty Lue who've shown a whole lot of fight, particularly in situations like this where they're trying to climb out of a hole. Phoenix wants no part of a Game 7 at home where all the pressure would have been on their shoulders. Their stars weren't going to let it happen. What'd they do?
No, they weren't. And look, I said before the game, this was going to be Chris Paul's night. He hadn't played well. He had not shot well.
Nope.
He has capable of doing what he did tonight offensively. He and Booker were special in this one. And I like some of the wrinkles that they added in this game. And here's one of them. And this is so unique. This is the kind of treatment Steph Curry normally gets, where you get the defender literally on the high side. Patrick Beverley's just trying to keep Devin Booker from coming anywhere up here to receive the basketball. So they put a little wrinkle in. You put DeAndre Ayton in the middle. So now he's going to set this screen, and you're going to see Booker now flare out here. And that's going to force Patrick Beverley to come over the top. So now when Booker catches this, he's already got Patrick Beverley behind him. Love the wrinkle. Catches it. Nice little flare. Now as he looks up, now it's just this little snake dribble into this 15-footer. That's his favorite spot on the floor. This little pull-up. This is an and one. This was Devin Booker cooking in the first half. But then, Scott, we talk about this run that the Clippers went on after it got cut to 7, and that's what we're looking at right here. 7-point game. Well, how does this happen? The Clippers are in a zone. Let's take a look at exactly what happens. This is all Patrick Beverley's mistake, because right now they're in a zone, but they're matched up everywhere on the floor. You got 5 guys basically matched up in your area. For some inexplicable reason, Patrick Beverley decides to run over here on this pass. Now you get 2 on the ball. The one thing you can never have in a zone defense is 2 guys on the basketball, because it's going to lead to a simple pitch and catch right back here. Chris Paul dribbles in for wide with 3. Why did I pick this play with not a lot going on? Because this might be the most important shot of Chris Paul's career. They just cut it to 7, and you walk into a 3, and you're ready for the moment you knock it down. And then here, another little wrinkle. Double screen. You get the first one here, the second one here. Chris Paul comes off, and really what he's trying to do is engage Boogie Cousins. This is the guy they want to attack. Don't see the second screen coming. He comes off. Cousins is reluctant to help because Ayton's here for the lob. So Boogie kind of stays flat-footed, and now Chris Paul is able to turn the corner, get to the rim. All this during that run when he put the game away basically single-handedly.
Right.
And, you know, like I said, he's a reluctant scorer. But when you get opportunities on big stages, big moments, he knows, look, I got a young team. I want no part of a Game 7, like you said, with a bunch of young fellas going through it for the first time at home and what that might feel like. He wanted to take care of business tonight, and he did in a huge way after the Clippers made that run to make it look like it was going to get very interesting.
You know me well, and you know how little I like the whole idea of legacy. It's what you are when you're done, in my opinion, and how the conversation can get exhausting, frankly, about what players need to do. It's a team sport. A lot has to happen. That said, the importance for Chris Paul to now have earned the right to play the most important games of his life. How significant, given the totality of his career absent this trip and what this trip gives him the chance to now do?
The guy's considered one of the greatest point guards of all time. He was before the last 2 seasons, but for me, these last 2 seasons are really now would give you a much greater appreciation than you ever had for Chris Paul.
Totally agree.
And that's amazing if you think about those teams with the Clippers that he was on, all that talent, and year after year they're in the running for a title contender. What he did in Oklahoma City and what he did with this team, to take this team and lead this team to the finals with a lot of help. It's a very complete basketball team. I love watching this team play because they check every box. But for me, these are the 2 most significant years of his career, and to do it at this age, at what you think is like the end, the twilight's around the corner, nothing can be more impressive or more rewarding, I'm sure, to Chris Paul when he thinks about all those years. It probably on better teams in a lot of cases, but now to have this moment where he is so revered as a leader, to be able to come into this group and give them that essence of floor leadership that they desperately needed and toughness, man, this is like the icing for Chris Paul right now.
And it's also the perfect spot, too, right? Because you got a 24-year-old superstar in Booker, and you got a big fella in Ayton who, as you said, like, not a lot of bigs in the game. You can stay on the floor when you're a big like that. As always, Tim, the time is so much appreciated.
Thanks, Scott.
We'll be talking during the finals.
Oh, yeah.
Can we welcome in Monty Williams now? I'm turning the wrong way, Coach. Hi, Coach. It's Scott Van Pelt. Monty, thank you so much for taking the time to be on with us. Congratulations. I wonder, in a moment like this, how do you properly allow yourself to enjoy a moment while still focusing on what are going to be the most important games your team will be playing coming up here in the finals?
Yeah, it's new for me for sure. I've wanted to be a part of this all of my career, and when you get into the league, you think it's easy, especially when you are a part of an organization like the Spurs, and you watch them go through deep runs, and you're a part of it different times of your career at different times. But to be a head coach in this position, it's hard to describe, Scott. I'm just grateful. And I think I'm just getting old because I really enjoyed watching our players enjoy the moment. But I'm so blessed to coach the guys that I coach, to work with the people I work with, to have a job. This kind of job is something that I don't take for granted.
Monty, when I was talking with Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson about you, it's my observation. I think you allow your guys to be your guys. Mark Jackson says they know you give a crap about them, and yet you still have to coach them. I wonder, how have you found the sweet spot of being all of the things that a man wants to be, a mentor, a leader, and a taskmaster when you have to be? How has that balance been achieved?
Well, I expressed from the time I got the job in Phoenix and every new player that comes to our program, the essence of my coaching is to serve. As a believer in Christ, that's what I'm here for. And I tell them all the time, if I get on you, I'm not calling you out, I'm calling you up. You have potential, and I have to work my tail off to help you reach that potential. And I think guys have embraced that. They understand that if I'm direct or black and white with them, it's not to make them feel bad. I want them to get paid. I want them to win. I want their families to enjoy it. And it served us well.
I'm a man of faith. I understand what you're talking about. On the floor, though, it must be nice to place belief in Chris Paul and what he brings. I imagine that engenders a certain amount of faith as well.
Yeah.
How do you best explain to me what he's given you, Monty, not just tonight where it's obvious, 41 points, but just from the moment he arrives with a young team who had never played a playoff game as a group?
Yeah. It's huge. I mean, I've told people I'm not ashamed to tell anybody that the most success I've had as a coach is with Chris. And, the conversations that we have off the floor, on the floor, it's always about winning. It's always about how to make other people better. He picks my brain. I pick his brain. I tend to follow him when he has an instinct about a certain situation. And for whatever reason, he trusts me to put him in situations where he can be successful. But he's just a great player. He's a leader. He serves his teammates. And we saw that tonight. He was dead tired, and he still was able to make play after play after play. That's his will. And I'm just happy to watch him in this moment. And we still have more work to do, but really gratifying to watch him in this moment.
Clearly. And I believe you had your headset on as I was talking to Tim Legler. He steps into a situation where you have so many young players, and I see a guy like Devin Booker, who, Monty, he's been on my show a couple of times. He's 24 years old, and he's just so put together and so impressive. And I'm not talking about as a player. That's obvious. I'm talking about as just a young guy. I leave the conversations thinking, wow, what an impressive guy. And to have this sort of coming out party on this stage, I'm sure it's not a surprise, but what do you believe he has in him in this next round?
Well, I just know how badly he wants to win. I heard about the workouts with his dad. I heard about the connection that he has with his family. What you see from Book is a product of his upbringing, his mom, his dad, his brothers, his sister. They're just a tight-knit group, and I think that transfers to the team. He's all about team. He's all about family, but he's got a killer. He's got a fearlessness about him, and he's not afraid of the moment. That's the thing I love about Book. Sometimes he'll make plays or try things on the floor that, get in my crawl, but I know his intention is to win, and he's not afraid. So that's why I love him.
With you, and I hope you and your guys enjoy all that's coming with the finals. We look forward to watching your guys play, all right?
Thank you, Scott. Have a great night.
You as well.